Welcome to Golf Smarter Mulligans, your second chance to gain insight and advice from the best instructors featured on the Golf Smarter podcast. Great golf instruction never gets old. Our interview library features hundreds of hours of game improvement conversations like this that are no longer available in any podcast app.
A cat is simply a better athlete than a dog. From a golf swing perspective, when you watch Jim Furyk doing his thing, when you watch Sergio Garcia really laying the club off at the top, what you're dealing with is a bunch of cats. People that can put their bodies in awkward positions and still land on their feet. The average golfer really needs to be more fundamentally sound than a tour player because they're just not as physically talented. So when you get the golf club too much inside or club face too closed or across the line or falling away from the target for impact, when you do those things, you usually end up with a crash landing, falling over, not being safe and sound, landing on your feet at the bottom. So when I look at a player and they go, well, VJ does this or Furyk does this, why can't I do that? It's really the difference between cats and dogs. And the guys out there in the cat category, so they can get away with a lot more.
With another interview from the archives of Golf Smarter, here's your host, Fred Green.
Our guest today is one of the more popular PGA certified instructors on YouTube. Nearly 2 million views of his instruction, commentary, and tips. And now that YouTube is the number 2 search engine, that's saying a lot. He's also a writer and a pretty funny, informative book called Your Kid Ate My Divot. It doesn't sound like it would have valuable instruction, but he tells interesting stories that we can all relate to and then turns it back to concise and easy-to-comprehend golf instruction. This is the first of 2 conversations, which will conclude next week. Welcome to the Golf Smarter podcast, Jeff.
Hey, Fred.
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic this morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Do you already have a lesson this morning?
No, actually, today is my day off / my new business day, so I thought I'd come in here and do a little radio show with you, then figure out other ways I can get my name out there.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I hope you don't think you're going to be on the radio here. We're just going to put you on the internet. We're going to send you worldwide. Forget the radio stuff. We're going worldwide with this one.
I think that's even better.
I've been having so much fun reading your book, and we're not going to be talking about a book today. I mean, necessarily, I'll bring on an author, and we'll talk the entire time about their book. But you're a golf instructor primarily. And you have your name spread out the internet in multiple ways. But you've recently put out a book that, at first glance, you think it's a little comic ditty, but really it's got some serious instruction in here. And it's called Your Kid Ate My Divot.
Exactly. And, I never set out to be an author. I just set out to be as creative as I could be with my coaching. And, very lucky to work for a lot of different golf magazines as a regular writer. And there's a magazine in the UK called Golf Punk Magazine. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
oh yeah,
it's got a really interesting spin on coaching. It's almost like Maxim meets Golf Digest, where it's got fashion and style, and it's got a real humorous take on the tour. But it's also got a lot of great content that's really true to the sport. And I've been fortunate to work with those guys the last couple of years, and they actually gave me a forum to write my own column, where it had to be a real true story based from something that happened on the lesson tee. And then from there, I sort of attached a little miniature life lesson to it. And after a couple of years of doing these, we actually had enough content to put them into a book. I was lucky enough to make that a reality.
Yeah, and that's what I enjoyed about it. It's one thing where you're just going to go ahead and write a book and tell stories, but then you had to think about them and process them and come up with life lessons through them.
Well, looking at books in the bookstore in the golf section, I just wasn't that impressed with what I saw out there, just from a creative standpoint. I mean, there's a lot of great books out there, but all the covers are of some green landscape or a golf ball sitting there, someone holding their finish, or they're all technical or they're all story based. But I didn't see anything that really combined the technical side to the story side to the life lesson side, and then packaged it in a way that made you stop and say to yourself, what the heck is this? And there is a story in my book about a kid that actually ate a divot in frustration, and of course there's a lesson attached to that. But as I was talking with one of my friends who's also a writer, he said, you know what, that needs to be the title of your book, because it's so ludicrous that people at least stop and look and see what the heck it is. And then we were
right,
lucky
and
enough
And you've got a great hook. You've got the word divot, so it's going to make people turn their head.
Well, sure.
Golfers,
and then we actually said,
especially.
yeah. And then you said, what's going to be on the cover? And I said, well, how about a kid eating a divot? There's nothing more ludicrous than that. So I think when people pick up the book, they stop and they look at it and they say, first of all, what is this? They start to read the stories and they find some good humor. But the real hook for me and the real thing that I thought made it different was trying to create a life lesson that was really serious and really did make you think. And at the end of it, you said to yourself, hey, that was fun. It was interesting to read. And wow, those life lessons were a little bit more deep and poignant than I thought they would be. So to actually surprise the reader in terms of what the content was going in, but actually surprised me more as to how valuable it could be was really my goal.
Interestingly enough, the story about your kid ate my divot was a cute story, cute. But I really liked your tip afterwards, and I'm glad you brought that up because you call it the junior golf experience. And I want to go over it because I found things in that are lessons not just for junior golfers, that for most golfers who struggle with the game we all struggle with the game because we all want to be better, but there are some players who never break 100, most players who never break 100, and many who know that they're on the brink of breaking 90 and want to get a little closer. There's some lessons I think that come through your analysis on that story that will help us get there.
Absolutely. I think everyone is faced with this challenge on the golf course. One of the challenges is living up to your expectations of your own game. And then the other challenge is living up to your perceived expectations of the people around you. And I think a lot of times golfers, whether they're young or they're older, they put a lot of self-worth into how they hit a golf ball and how the world around them perceives their skill level as it relates to what kind of person they are or how much they're going to be liked. And in this particular story, and I do want to point out that the book is a book for adults. There's one story about this child's experience. But in this particular story at this golf camp, the kid in the story was having a real issue, connecting with the other players and connecting with his expectation of what his experience was going to be like. And he got to that point where because he wasn't getting what he wanted, he went into full meltdown phase, and he actually consumed a divot in frustration because I, of course, told him he couldn't throw his clubs anymore because we call his parents and have to come pick him up. But it's really a lesson, for any age that the big key to success is being able to have a goal in mind, to be able to start small, to be able to gain some confidence in what you're doing, and really let go of the pressure of the outcome. Because when you put pressure on the outcome and you don't get what you get, you certainly don't enjoy the experience and all the great things the game has to offer.
That's right. And you talk about the great exercise to begin with is recognition of positive post-round routine. And not only is that a great thing to do with your junior golfer once you go pick them up as we approach summer, and a lot of kids are going to be going to golf camp. And I want you to talk about that. But I think it's also a good thing for us to do as we're leaving the golf course. And, you don't necessarily have to go to the bar afterwards and sit and talk with buddies. You want to reflect on your round a little bit to help you on your next one. So let's talk about this positive post-round routine information.
I'm a firm believer that, all of our behaviors as we relate to other golfers and people in society, these are learned behaviors. And a good friend of mine who's in the performance coaching business deals with a lot of people on the PGA Tour, Jeff Quinney, Michael Allen. He's not a registered psychologist, but some people call it sports psychology. I spent about 2 summers with him doing some junior golf camps, and one of the things we talked about was a study that he did while he was training. And what he did is he got to the 18th hole, and he had a piece of paper, and on one side it had positive remarks, comments as it related to someone's round, and the other side was negative comments or remarks. And as people came off the 18th hole, he just started asking them one question: how'd it go today? And a lot of times when the adults would come off, it would be, oh, you know what, if I could only putt, then this game would be worth playing, or where's the bar, or at least I'm not dead, or things like that were all negative as related to what happened out there. As related to the kids that came off the course, most of the remarks were positive, and sometimes not even related to golf at all. Say, how'd it go today? Oh, you're not going to believe it. I saw a big snapping turtle on the 4th hole that everyone talks about. How'd it go today? You know what, I hit my drive so far, number 5, it actually made it into the water. Never hit it that far before. And you start to realize that from a child's perspective, in general, they tend to see the things that are positive. But it's as you grow older that you start watching the people around you and trying to model their attitudes. So someone plays golf with their uncle and he hits a bad shot. The first thing he does is slams his club and he swears. So this kid says, oh, I get it now. When I don't get what I want, I have to show disappointment. Because if I don't show disappointment, the people around me are going to think that this is how I really play. So from the adult's perspective, and even the kid's perspective, leaving the round of golf and just sitting down for a moment and say, hey, what was really great about today? I guarantee you there's a putt or a chip or a pitch or a drive or a moment out there that you really enjoyed. So recognize that first. And then from there, just ask yourself, what was the lesson today? Every round has a lesson. Sometimes the lesson is technical. Sometimes it's emotional. Sometimes it's just a game management lesson. But what you want to be able to do is say, what's the lesson for today's round? How could I improve on it? And then when you go practice, now you have something that you can actually work towards that's going to make a difference the next time you go out.
Awesome. Yeah, why not? It's only going to help in the long run. Interestingly enough, another one of the stories, Pink Panther, I thought was a very funny story. And not just so much the lesson, but what you did taking her through her golf swing and taking her to a place, because she wasn't following through on her swing, correct?
Exactly, yeah.
Go ahead and tell the story on that and how you got her through that.
Well, I'm here at Arizona State University, and there's a lot of very pretty girls who you would normally think wouldn't have any interest in playing sports. You think their things that they enjoy are shopping and tanning and buying a new pair of Gucci shoes. And there was a girl who came out who kind of fit that mold, but she really had a desire to fit in with the sport, even though everything that she did and believed in was kind of to the contrary. And we were hitting some shots, and her big thing was she would make a beautiful backswing, a beautiful follow-through, and a practice swing. And then she would get to the ball in a real situation, and every time she swung, the club would stab itself into the ground right behind the ball and stop right there. So I just started talking to her about, her lifestyle and the things she enjoys. So I said, hey, where are you from? And she goes, well, I'm from Beverly Hills. I said, well, that's not surprising, of course. And I said, is there a place that you like to go? Where's your favorite place? And she's like, boy, I love Palm Springs. I said, okay, well, let's say that your backswing is like a trip to Palm Springs for a nice day of shopping and spa treatment. And of course, she got real giddy and said, oh, this would be great. And I said, well, where's a place that you're not supposed to go? And she goes, well, my daddy would kill me if I ever stopped for gas in Compton, California. I said, well, let's imagine.
So obviously she's not going to be going to USC.
No, exactly. So, this is the kind of girl that drove a little white BMW convertible and whatnot.
And she didn't go to University of Arizona. I guess her grades weren't good enough. Never mind. Go ahead.
I guess not. So I said, well, imagine your backswing is like a trip to Palm Springs, and your follow-through resides in Beverly Hills with your parents. And I said, and as you go from your backswing to your follow-through, don't even think about stopping in Compton. And it was crazy because right away she connected with that. She started swinging through. She started laughing, hitting shots, and she kind of got it. So one of the things I like to do with my lessons is try and relate to the person and things that are happening in their life. But, I'm not going to stand out on the tee and be a guy that's just talking technical thoughts. And I'm not going to be the Bello Caroli of junior golf or whatnot, where it's the stern coach trying to get the lessons across. I want to have fun with my students. I want them to enjoy the experience. A lot of times we talk technical, a lot of times we talk emotional, a lot of times we talk about nothing golf related at all. But at the end of the day, I think they leave the lesson tee saying, I had a lot of fun. I considered this game from a perspective I never considered before, and I enjoyed the time I spent out there at the golf course.
I love the Bella Caroli reference. Let's play trivia now. I mean, I know where you're going with that, but maybe not everybody does. I mean, he was a gymnast coach in the Olympics for Mary Lou Retton, wasn't it?
Mary Lou Retton, yeah, and he was. It's just the stern approach to coaching,
right?
And that's certainly not who I am. I think that you can't coach desire. You can inspire people to believe in themselves more, but every person that has a goal has to take ownership over that goal.
Absolutely.
And what they do is they surround themselves with what I call the winner's circle, which are people that believe that goal has a place in the world and want to support making that goal a reality. So
And it's a great advice for parenting as well. I don't know how much experience you have with that, but I know that when my kids got into high school, my wife and I agreed that we went from being managers to consultants as far as the method of raising our kids, and it worked out for the best. Interesting way to do it.
And that happens throughout your whole life. I mean, it's as a parent. I'm not a parent right now, but you spend a lot of time seeing kids that come out and have interest in their golf games, and then a couple of years down the road you don't see them anymore, and you find out they're not involved with the game anymore. And a lot of times when you talk to the parents, it's they got involved with a certain group at school, and they're really not in the sports anymore, and the grades went downhill. And who you surround yourself with really determines how successful you're going to be. And at a childhood age, a lot of times it's based around fun and getting in trouble and the things that add adrenaline to being a kid. But from an adult-based perspective, it's really easy to fall into that victim's mentality and to believe that the world's out to get you and you don't have a lot of control over who you are or who you're going to be. And when you surround yourself with people that share that attitude or are afraid of you achieving something great, it can really limit your ability to grow. And I really believe that when you're having a conversation with somebody, the way that they respond to your dialogue is going to be based out of love or fear. So, for example, if you say, I've got a goal of winning the club championship, and you're talking to one of your fellow members of the club, the first thing he says is, man, that's a great goal, and I want to play really well this summer too. Let's go ahead and set up a practice schedule. Let's practice together. Let's commit ourselves to being a lot better. Well, that's a comment made out of love because he just wants you to get better, and he wants to get better too, and let's find out how to get better together. If that same person responds by saying, win the club championship, are you crazy? How are you going to win the club championship? You can barely break 90. Well, that person right there is responding out of fear. The fear that maybe you're going to start practicing and get better than he is, and there he's going to be left in the dust with a golf game that's not so good. So, I think it's really important to create an awareness of what people say to you and why they say these things to you. Because if it's not out of love, it's basically based from a perspective that's going to hold you back in some way. And some of these things are not intentional. It's just that people feel a lot more comfortable when you are sitting right next to them, even if it's in mediocrity.
Wow. Awesome. Who've you studied? What golf instructors have you studied with or have studied their works that have influenced you?
I studied a lot of different people, and the thing is, I grew up on a golf course. My father was the head pro at a little club in Pennsylvania for 35 years, which you don't see that much happening anymore. And he used to take me to work with him in the morning since I was 3 years old. And, the things that I would do is I would just, root through everything I can get my hands on, whether it be magazines or books that he had. And, I remember in college actually taking the golfing machine and breaking it down into an outline form where I could understand it. And I don't really teach that perspective anymore. But everything from Harvey Penick
Homer
to Jim
Kelly's
Flick.
golfing machine?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
That's what I was doing on Friday night, which doesn't seem like a whole lot of fun. But I would do things like that. And I learned a lot from a gentleman named Bill Strasbaugh, who was a PGA National Award winner. He was kind of like the wise old man, the Harvey Penick that nobody knew of. And then from there, when I was in college, I met a guy named Mike LeBeau out in Scottsdale, Arizona. And Mike really laid the blueprint for how I teach now, how I diagnose and fix swings. Mike's very close with Jim Hardy, so I've been really following what Jim's done over the last 5 or 6 years, and he's been nice to spend some time with me. So it comes from a lot of different places. A lot of times people look at a guy's coaching perspective and they say, well, he teaches this way or he teaches that way. But it all kind of comes together in a golf lesson where you're really grabbing and pulling from things that you've learned throughout your life in coaching. And for me, that goes, back to being a kid and reading through magazines and books, at the clubhouse and in my dad's personal library.
But it sounds like you grew up wanting to be an instructor, not a tour player.
The thing that, I think everyone grows up wanting to be a tour player, but then the world has its way of, weeding out what your true calling is going to be. And, from a physical perspective, I was kind of behind the curve a little bit. I was a late bloomer. And when I was in high school, I was actually on the same high school golf team as Jim Furyk. Jim Furyk was a junior member at our golf course, and he was miles ahead of anyone in our little town that we grew up in, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So when you grow up in a small town and you don't have a consistent connection with what it means to be a professional athlete, you just think that the Greg Normans and the Fred Couples of the world are in some kind of unreachable category. And even at the time when Jim was in high school winning state championships by 12 shots, nobody really thought that he was going to make it at the professional level.
Why?
And I think one thing is he had a unique swing. I think
yes, that's why I wanted to go there.
I think it had a lot to do with being in a small town, not really knowing what else was out there. And, he even went to University of Arizona, didn't play very well for a couple of years. And I think at one point in time wasn't even starting on the team. And they had a really strong team with guys like Manny Zerman and a couple other guys I can't think of right now. Maybe Robert Gomez was on his team. But it turns out that Furyk becomes, a top 5 player in the world. But I think at that point in time when I was growing up, because I was so behind the curve from a physical perspective, and then one of your good friends is so far ahead of it, you start to look for what your niche is going to be. And I always enjoyed the technical side of things. I think just because I was always analyzing swings and looking at swings and putting my own swing on video when I had the chance, and I kind of got obsessed about, how to turn this into something, and it turned out pretty well to this point.
I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to Furyk for a minute. As a kid, this is really fascinating to me because we watch him on the tour going, who taught him how, you look at his swing and you're just totally baffled after hearing all this analysis and watching these slow motions and how he's square. And he's got one of the most unique golf swings. Obviously, if he doesn't make it to the pros, he's not a unique swing. It sucks, right? But because he's on the tour and he's had success on the tour, it's like, that's a unique swing, Well,
I think he learned his swing, and, there's anytime someone becomes great, there's always a million stories from the hometown that become legend, and how true they are, who knows. But Jim's father that people have seen with him out on tour is kind of a big-bellied guy, and Jim's dad used to be a pretty good player, and he was actually a sales rep for Tommy Armour. And as Jim was growing up, as legend tells it, his dad kind of had a loop in his swing just to get around his belly. So Jim started to model his father and take the club away from him, and obviously found a groove that made him hit some good shots. And, people think that Jim's got this crazy swing, which, it's crazy from a modern fundamental standpoint. But, when he and his dad are working on a swing, you can tell they're working on specific things. And, he's got a double overlap grip. He doesn't have the best looking posture. He stands very close to it. He loops it. He does all these crazy things. But I guarantee you that he has a framework of fundamentals that he believes in, that he's believed in for a long time, where he knows how to find his action when he needs it. So I think that the lesson for people out there is to realize that if they can look at a golf swing from a slightly different perspective, you can find beauty in any swing that performs at a high level. And a lot of times when, I can't sleep at night, I'll go on YouTube and I'll start just typing in names of the old school classic players like the Trevinos and Bobby Joneses of the world and the Arnold Palmers. And I probably spent 40 minutes the other night looking at Arnold Palmer on YouTube saying, man, what a beautiful golf swing. And a lot of people would say, God, it looks like the guy's in the middle of a car wreck while he's hitting shots. But the thing is, to see someone, that strong and that charismatic, just playing with a slashing, lashing attitude is really inspiring. And I kind of miss being able to see some of the personality in the golf swing of players out on tour these days. Everyone kind of looks the same, and that's a product of coaching. I'm sure these swings are more fundamentally sound from start to finish, but I think looking at some of those old swings, it's really fun to watch, and it's nice to see creativity within the game.
On your website, you offer video tips as well as video coaching. You have it on your site, right? That you'll look at people's swings.
I do. Yeah, we use the V1 coaching system here at the Ping Learning Center, where I'm located here in Tempe, Arizona. And one of the things we do with every golf lesson in person is we send out a video of your swing that actually goes online, so you can always access it. But one of the things that V1 lets us do is actually have people send their swing from anywhere in the world. As long as they have it on video, they can video it on their phone or on a regular video camera, and they can upload it to a home version of that V1 software. And then when I come into work in the morning, I just look at my inbox, and if there's a swing there for analysis, I go ahead and analyze it. And it's worked pretty well. It's amazing that you would think that you would have to see someone in person to make a big, big difference. But I've got swings from all over the world. I've got this one kid out in Finland that sends me a swing every couple of weeks, and I can always tell how close it is to golf season by how deep the snow is in the background. It's really crazy, and it's inspiring because when someone really wants to improve and you can get a message across even via video, it's amazing how much your golf swing can change. And it's been really fun having that experience and connecting with people all over the world just through being able to utilize technology.
Interesting. So one of the things that frustrates me when I have someone do a video analysis of my swing, and I try to stop doing it these days, is they seem to always tell you, don't compare yourself with Tiger. Don't compare yourself with Furyk or any of these guys. And yet, when they're doing your swing, they'll say, see, now look at how your position is. Now look at Tiger's.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that a coach will try and do is they're going to try and create some confidence from the student standpoint that what they're doing is in the right direction. And when you use a tour comparison where you can see an impact position or a backswing position, the person at home or the person getting the lesson says, oh, yeah, that makes sense, because it's doing something like a tour pro. The big thing that you have to realize when you say don't compare yourself with these players is this idea that there's a difference between cats and dogs. All right, and give me 1 second, I'll explain this whole thing. But
thank you.
A cat is an amazing athlete. You can hold a cat upside down by his feet and drop him, and he'll land on his feet, creating a safe landing. Land out of a tree upside down, getting its body into weird positions, and it will always land on its feet. If you hold a dog upside down...
Oh, my God, they freak out.
They'll freak out, land right on his head, right?
Yeah.
So a cat is simply a better athlete than a dog. From a golf swing perspective, when you watch, Vijay Singh, letting go of the club through impact, swinging up the target line, when you watch Jim Furyk doing his thing, when you watch Sergio Garcia really laying the club off at the top, what you're dealing with is a bunch of cats, people that can put their bodies in awkward positions and still land on their feet. The average golfer really needs to be more fundamentally sound than a tour player, because they're just not as physically talented. So when you get the golf club too much inside or club face too closed or across the line or falling away from the target through impact, when you do those things, usually end up with a crash landing, falling over, not being safe and sound, landing on your feet at the bottom. So when I look at a player and someone comes in and they go, well, VJ does this or Furyk does this, why can't I do that? It's really the difference between cats and dogs. And the guys out there in the cat category, so they can get away with a lot more.
Okay, it's official. I hope you don't mind. I am now changing the name of this show to Golf for Dogs. And if you use it as the name of your next book, I'm going to come after you.
I got you. No worries.
Golf for Dogs. I love it. Because, God, it's a great analogy. It works really well. If you don't mind, I've received some questions from listeners that you've kind of mentioned a couple things that they tie into it, and I'd like to see if you can answer a question or two. I'm trying to figure out which one to do here. Let's start with Kent Allred from Linden, Utah. And he said, I want to practice my drives more often than visits to the driving range will accommodate. Is it a good idea to use plastic or foam practice balls? Now, my response to this, and I ask this because not really about the plastic or foam. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever you want. I'm asking, why are you concentrating so much on just practicing your drives?
Well, the big thing is that you can't make pars with bogey tee shots. And what you see on tour right now, especially with Tiger Woods, I mean, here you have the world's most talented athlete who has difficulty hitting fairways. And when you can't hit fairways, man, you've got to be amazing in every other category just to be able to compete. So for the recreational player, being able to hit a fairway on a consistent basis really sets up the ability to play a consistent game of golf, because you don't have enough firepower in the short game and the putting game to be able to make up from bogeys, double bogeys, triple bogeys that come from, wayward tee shots and penalty shots. A guy like Phil Mickelson can hit it sideways, but you know what? He's got enough firepower to make 7 birdies in a row if he wants to. So it's very easy for him to not be so worried about, driving accuracy or something like that. So I think the average person needs to go out and spend a lot of time with the clubs that they feel like they're going to need the most. So if you can spend a lot of time with your driver, your sand wedge, and your putter, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to have enough of an arsenal where you can play some pretty good golf. If you go out on the practice tee and you just hit 5 irons all day working on your golf swing, it might not make a very big difference in your game, especially if when you go out to the golf course, you don't have a lot of 5-iron approach shots. So use the clubs you hold the most often, and I think it'll benefit.
Right, because golf is truly just a series of disasters looking for correction, right?
Well, the thing is that, I really believe, and this is important for people to get across, it's so funny when you look at golf as it relates to other sports. For example, if you're playing baseball, if you hit your ball anywhere within the foul lines, that's considered good, right? You can pop it up, and if they drop it, that's good. You can hit a grounder through the gap where the shortstop is, and that's good. You can hit a home run, that's good. And there's a lot of different levels of what pretty good is. When it comes to golf, all of a sudden, if we don't hit a ball right on the center of the face and it doesn't climb up in the sky and arc just 2 or 3 feet to the left, and it doesn't feel good in our hands and arms, we get angry about it. And a lot of the most miserable golfers are the best golfers because they have such a high expectation of what good is to them, what success is to them. And the thing that people need to realize, especially good players, is that golf is not about who hits it the best. It's about who misses it the least. And when you hit a drive that lands within the boundaries of the fairway, put your club back in your bag and say, hey, nice job, because it's not going to make any difference to your score if you hit it 10 yards further or more in the center of the face, or it felt like a perfect shot. And I think a lot of people start getting down about, I hit that one on the toe or hit that one on the heel, or I don't like that trajectory. It's almost like, hey, just shut up and go play. Because that's what the game's about. Hit it and find it, hit it and find it, hit it and find it, and hopefully you'll miss it least than the guy playing next to you.
That's great advice. I love that quote. Not who hits it the best, but misses it the least. Wow. And you're absolutely right. Does that mean that if you can get to the point where you're starting to achieve single-digit handicap, your life's going to be miserable?
You know what?
You're going to start beating yourself up even more.
Well, it does if you view things from the incorrect perspective. And I read a quote the other day. It said, your day doesn't determine your attitude determines your day. And I really think that a lot of people are out there believing that things are happening to them, as opposed to them making things happen. And anyone who's played with someone who's had an awkward swing that hits a consistent big slice or big hook and maybe putts and chips like crazy, you say to yourself, how in the world does this guy keep on winning the club championship? How's this guy keep on winning the flight? And how's this guy shoot 79? It's probably because he enjoys the game more than you do. He knows where his ball's going. Sure, he has his shortcomings, his mistakes. He has a strength that he relies on. Maybe he's a great chipper. He putts pretty well. But the thing is that he doesn't look at a golf shot and then label it as good or bad. It just is. So the thing is that now we're getting into Shakespeare. Nothing is good nor bad until our thinking makes it so. And a lot of times when someone hits a ball to the right, they say, oh, my God, I can't believe I keep slicing it. This drive is bad. I hate this driver. My swing stinks today. Well, the thing is, the things that you say and the things that you think are going to determine how you're going to feel. So if you think a negative thought, you're going to start feeling bad, which means you're not going to be in rhythm. You're going to swing poorly. And now your attitude is affecting every action you have throughout your day. The thing is that you have a choice as it relates to how you're going to feel about the outcome of anything. So if you hit a ball to the right, or maybe if you even hit a ball out of bounds, you can instead say to yourself, hey, this is perfect. This couldn't be better, because every time I've hit it out of bounds in the first hole, I've followed up with a birdie on the second hole. The thing is that remark or idea doesn't even have to be rooted in reality. It just has to make you feel good. Because when you think good, you feel good, and when you feel good, you make better swings. So it's really a game of mental discipline and being able to manage how you feel about outcomes. And that's what makes it such a great game, because you got 4 to 5 hours of seeing how well you deal with not getting what you want. And that's why golf is a great metaphor for life, because life is just the same way.
Man, you got some good stuff. Tell us more about what you're doing on YouTube.
YouTube has been one of the most amazing things that's affected my coaching. About 2 years ago, a friend of mine suggested that I just put a few videos on YouTube for the world to see. And, very quickly, just through being able to tag them appropriately so people could easily find them, I got a lot of hits on them. So what I did with my web designers, I created a Jeff Ritter golf channel on YouTube, and this is something that golf pros can do for entirely free, but it's kind of a neat branding opportunity. And over 2 years, I put about 60 videos on, and I've got nearly 2 million views worldwide just to this free medium. And it's been fantastic because now I would say that, you know, the majority of my clientele, at least 70%, comes from outside of Arizona. I'll have a week where I have someone from Australia and Luxembourg and in England or whatnot. It's just it's something that generally wouldn't happen unless you had a way to touch a lot of people out there. And it's been a great thing, and I enjoy connecting with the people out there and answering questions and really creating a worldwide audience and connection with the other golfers out there.
And you've just promoted that even further by being on the Golf Smarter podcast. And hopefully, if anybody does have any questions for Jeff, they could write to me. Click on the Hey Fred button at golfsmarter.com, and I will forward your question to Jeff. Also, check out his website, jeffrittergolf.com, JEFFRITTER, jeffrittergolf.com. Jeff, I've got so many more questions on my list of questions to discuss with you. I'm hoping you can come back and talk with us again.
I'd love to, anytime.
That'd be awesome. Thanks so much for your time today, and we'll speak with you soon.
All right, Fred. Thanks a lot.